Good. It is 11 o'clock. We can get going, I think. So I guess this week is Charles Jillings from Utilico Emerging Markets. So we'll be talking to him in a minute. But first, some news as normal. So I can just move that on. Bits and pieces that I've pulled out this week. Herald, Warehouse REIT, and Vietnam in general. Herald first. There's the chart. You should be fairly familiar with it. We talked about it a few times recently. I think the main message that I wanted to pull out from that is that the discount has been relatively stable for quite a long time, except for the period around Saba's attack on the trust, when they pushed it right down to a premium. And then as soon as they didn't win, it went back up to its normal level again. And you got the little wobble around Liberation Day, but that's common to most trusts. What we had this week is the news that Saba's actually now gone through 30% of Herald. It doesn't hold all of those shares directly. Some are held through financial instruments, so contracts for difference that it's got with banks. That doesn't affect the situation in terms of its control of the voting rights. It's gone through 30% because Herald's been buying back stock and has been doing that fairly regularly. So that was the reason that it went over 30%. But Saba has been buying some shares. They were buying shares since the AGM on the 22nd of January, because they only had 14.1 million shares voted in favour of their requisition. Now, this is all to do with the takeover panel rules. And normally, if you go through 29.9, that triggers a bid. Or if you've already got over 29.9 and you buy more shares, that triggers a bid. And you have to pay the last price you paid for the stock or a premium to that. So as things stand, Saba doesn't actually have to do anything. But if it just bought one share, then that would trigger a bid. So we need to be sort of very careful to watch what it's up to, and it needs to be very careful not to make a mistake somehow. Herald has been buying back stock, as I've said there. That should be £9.76 million worth rather than the comma there. So far this year. So that's fairly chunky. They've been doing this. They've been quite good at keeping their discount around that kind of 10% level. As I say, this is where it normally trades. So I don't see any reason why it should have to make more of an effort than it is doing already. So that kind of begs the question is, where is Saba trying to go with this? What is it trying to achieve? It tried taking the management contract away from Herald Investment Management. That clearly was rejected by everybody. And there's no good reason, as I say, to drag the discount down unnaturally. So why isn't it just selling into the buyback? It doesn't really make any sense to me at all. And they've got a lot of money invested here. It's slightly strange that they're sort of persevering with this. Warehouse REIT next. There you see the normal kind of pattern of these alternative income trusts where the share price NAV climbed steadily and then it moves out to a discount in the wake of the rising interest rates. And that does hit the NAV too, though you see it, but with a lag, which is, again, maybe not unexpected. But what we've seen more recently is a narrowing of the discount, and that is all related to the bidding interest in the stock. So we were talking about this, or Richard Williams talked about this on the show of the 27th of June. He's not in today, so it falls to me to talk about what the latest developments are. So this week we had news that Blackstone have upped their bid. So it looked like a done deal for Tritax Big Box, but now Blackstone have trumped that. And they are bidding all cash, equivalent of 115p per share. So some of it comes as a dividend, some of it comes as a cash payment. This is 6p more than they bid last time, so it's a fairly chunky increase. And the share price is trading just above that bid level, so 115.4 last time I looked. As we see there, that's still a 10% discount to the NAV. So they have bought some stock at the bid price, 10.5% stake. And again, because of the takeover panel rules, is that all as in play there, they couldn't have paid less for that. They had to pay at least the bid price for it. And if they pay more than the bid price, then that creates a problem. Actually, then maybe that's not true. Maybe they could have paid less, but they couldn't pay more. Anyway, so Tritax Big Box REITs is considering its options and will make another announcement. So we'll just have to watch this space to see what happens. But in the meantime, I would say don't do anything. We've had this sort of flip now. The board has said we're going to go with the higher offer. The Tritax bid value of that moves around with the Tritax share price. But at the moment, that was 111.1p. So they'd have to go some to get through the 115 level for Blackstone. So we'll wait and see. But it might be, as Richard said before, that if you're an investor in Warehouse REIT now, you want to retain exposure to those assets, because the other thing, obviously, about that chart is that the NEV is a long way shy of its peak, and it is edging back. And there's no reason to believe that it won't continue to do so. So if you want exposure to Warehouse REIT assets, you can't get that if Blackstone takes it over. Vietnam now, to sort of finish up with, that's the chart for Vietnam Holding. And you've seen there that it's sort of tracked sideways a bit over the last few years. Although it is off the lows and it's sort of climbing again, and then a big sort of wobble around the Trump announcement on Liberation Day. And this is a chart of the VN index, which is the Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange Index. And you can see that it's a similarish picture. So we've had a bit of a pickup recently. So we had a bit sharp fall off on Liberation Day, steady recovery back to the previous levels, and then a sort of bounce more recently. And that's related to news that they have done a deal on tariffs. I've been talking about Vietnam Holding. Obviously, this news applies to all three funds, so it's important to show those there. Vietnam Holding is the smallest one, but it's the one that we write about, so it's the one that you get the most information about on our website. It's also been by far the best performing trust over 5 years and 3 years, as you see there, but not quite so much recently. That's all down to stock selection between the three different funds. So the news of this trade deal was announced on the 2nd of July. And so it's obviously less than last week, but the manager's been talking about it more recently, which is why we did a story on it. What they've said is we were going to put tariffs of 46% on for Vietnam. We come down to 10 in the interim, but now we get to the edge of this. We're going to agree a trade deal at 20% tariffs, but we're going to impose much higher tariffs if we think that you're just taking goods from China and then re-exporting them from Vietnam, which makes total sense, I suppose, if you're trying to penalise China. And there's no tariffs on US imports coming into Vietnam, but it's very skewed this. So to Vietnam's, the exports that it makes to the US are about 10 times the imports that it takes from the US. And there were lots of noises about maybe we'll buy all sorts of things from the States, but there's no detail in this that suggests that they're committed to buying anything. While all this has been going on, and the other bits going on about corruption inquiries and stuff like that, the stocks in Vietnam have got very cheap. So they are looking, 12 times earnings next year is inexpensive to say the least. But obviously the earnings estimates might still come down on the back of this. US is one of the biggest trading partners, but it's by no means all of it. I think it's less than half. So that's all good. But there is a big question mark still that, as I was found out this morning. So basically yesterday it came out that, what the story is that the Vietnamese leader picked up the phone to Trump thinking that he was going to be able to agree a tariff of about 11%. And Trump said, no, it's 20, and then put the phone down, more or less. And so Vietnam has not signed off on this. And they'd still like it to be in a kind of 10 to 15% range. This is not a done deal. That might mean that we get a pullback in share prices in the short term. It definitely means you get higher price rises if they do get a lower deal than this. But it's just another example of the chaos that surrounds the whole US regime. So that's enough from me.